FM.
Ons gesels vanoggend met Le-Verne Wagner. Sy is 'n opvoedkundige sielkundige hier in die Laagveld. Ek het nou net met die luisteraars ook gedeel dat ek vanoggend gesels met een van ons luisteraars, Shamaine en Sabi, wat vanoggend my sê, Sanett, ek het nog 'n vriend aan die dood afgestaan weens COVID-19.
Hierdie is 'n onsekere tyd wat ons nou bly en ons weet nie hierdie virus gaan vat nie. Ons weet nie wie of wat of wanneer of hoe dit gaan gebeur nie. Ons weet net dit maak net baie seer. En dit is onverwags. En dit laat mense 'n bietjie eenkant toe staan. Dit laat jou so 'n bietjie in skok staan die hele tyd. Want jy weet nie wat van dag tot dag gaan gebeur nie. Areas that it's affected people is, as you say, absolutely just widespread. It has affected every single area of our lives, our children's lives, our work lives, loved lives, just well-being. It has absolutely gone there. So it really is. I think we're all in a bit of a permanent state of grief over loss of something. A loss of work is a big one. Many people have been retrenched. Loss of family members, loss of friends. The surprise and the shock of what's going on, you can see it day to day when you're walking down the street, and you can see it on people's faces, and you can see it in the way they are conducting themselves, exactly what is busy happening.
When someone passes, what can we expect to go through?
Well, we all know about the 7 stages of grief. But I think the initial shock, that phone call that you get saying this loved one has now passed, I think not only is it a difficult phone call to make, but it's an exceptionally difficult phone call to receive. But the biggest thing is you go through a deep sense of helplessness, the sense of there's nothing I can do about this. And that creates an even deeper sense of sadness and anger and depression. So it's important to remember that when you get this news, the person who you have loved, who you've cherished, who is now no longer with you, has no more pain. They are no longer aware. It is for us, the people who are left behind, to live their memories and to experience the pain of their loss. So they are not experiencing any pain. It is just us. And when we start looking at it that way, you can start going, okay, this is something I'm going through. This isn't something that is happening to me. It's something that has happened, and I have to now go through the processes. So this is where the 7 stages of grief come into play. And your first one is shock and denial. It's that one we spoke about earlier. And the second one is pain and guilt. The third one is anger and bargaining. The fourth one is depression, not sadness, a deep sense of depression. It's that helplessness that I was talking about. Then you start going on sort of an upward turn, where you start going, okay, this is bad, but we're okay, and we can start working through this. Then it is reconstruction and making meaning of what happened. That is when you start reliving that moment again and again, and all the moments you had with the person. And the last one is acceptance and hope. And this is the stages that we go through. Now, what is interesting about these stages is that you can't clock them. You can't say, oh, okay, I'm now in grief. I'm now in depression. I'm now in anger. The thing is, you will follow it from one end to another. But in the meantime, you'll go back and forth between them. You might skip a stage, go back to a previous stage, jump forward a stage. And every time you start feeling better, something will happen that'll remind you of that person. Something will happen that'll recreate a memory, whether it's a smell or a taste or a place or a person or a saying. And when that happens, you immediately go through all 7 stages again, but in a much shorter time span. What is interesting and what is good to know is that your brain can only handle an intense emotional feeling for about 40 minutes before it needs to shut that feeling down. So when you're feeling this extreme anger, you will be angry for about 40 minutes. And then your brain is going to say, look, that's enough of that hormone. I'm now tired. We're now going to flip you over into a different emotion. But you will probably go back to it at a later stage for another short time. So when you are feeling these things, just remember they will not last, they will progress through, and you'll probably relive them like waves coming through you.
I think that's always the thing that's been so interesting to me about the grieving process, is how it can loop itself. You can go through it over and over again. People say
Yes.
time heals. You need to work through it. What brings healing?
I say that time doesn't erase. When people say time heals, I think they feel like what they're saying is time will erase the pain. Time will not erase the pain. You will learn to cope with the pain in a better way. Every single time it happens that you go through these 7 stages, every time that you feel this grief coming to you, you will experience it with a little more logic, with a little more rationale, with a little bit more understanding, which is going to make you feel a little bit better. So time creates time for you to understand. It doesn't heal it. If you had to find out if this had happened a year from now, the same amount of time would have passed and you would have had the exact same reaction as what you had the first time. So no, it is you that's working through the process each time that makes it a little bit easier to handle.
I think one of the moments that adults fear most, besides having to make that phone call or receiving that phone call, is having to speak to our children about this. Can you give us some advice in that regard, please?
Breaking the news to children of all ages is never easy. It is one of the hardest things to do. For an adult, it's because you have to now relive it. You have to rationalize it, and you have to make the pain you're experiencing feel better so that the children can handle it. So it's a very difficult thing to do. For the children, you must remember they're going to go through the initial shocks that you went through the first time you heard it. So be prepared. One of the things I always advise for parents is whenever giving your child really difficult news, put something in their hands, whether it is a ball or Play-Doh, something they can squish, something they can release their energy into. Because the more you tell them what's going on, the more anxious they're going to get, the more stressed they're going to get, and the less they're going to be listening and understanding. So what that does is in the hand, it actually releases that energy into the object that they're squeezing and allows them to focus a little bit better. The second one I would say is have something sweet ready. Every time somebody gets a shock, what do you want afterwards? Something sweet. So have a sweet or have a cool drink ready for them to drink afterwards. Then when speaking to them, explain it to them honestly and logically, but with great discretion. And if you are a spiritual person, or if you're a spiritual or religious family, even better, they already have the sense of what happens in the afterlife when somebody goes, and just use that to your advantage in this case. The other thing is I would create a place, either in the garden or in the house, wherever you are able to, that is a dedicated memory for that person. Not a shrine. We don't want to make a shrine. What we want to make is a dedicated place where when the children are sad, they can go to that spot and speak. When they have a letter that they wanted to write the person, they can put it under the rock on that spot. Children do not understand the concept of death. They do not understand how this works, because for children, you go away, you come back. I don't understand the not coming back part. I want something, I get it. I don't understand why it's not happening. But if they know that this person is dedicated to this spot in the garden or this spot in the house, and anytime they want to go speak, they can go there, it gives them a sense of relief because they know where to find them, in a sense. So that creates a great sense of relief for them. Then there's a couple of things that parents often ask, and that is, do I let my child go to the funeral? Yes, let your child go to the funeral. There's no reason they shouldn't go. Yes, it is emotional, but they're going to see how many people love this person, that everybody is sad, that people are allowed to cry, that this is the place where people say goodbye. So if you're doing a cremation, a funeral, a memorial, yes, let your child go. It is also their time to say goodbye. Let them meet with friends and family that first 2 weeks after the passing. Let them meet with lots of friends and family. Let them hear the stories. Let them be part of the process. By shielding them and telling them, "Gaan speel, go play," you are not shielding them. You are, in fact, telling them that their memory of this person is not important. So involve them. And try to keep to a routine. It's that is very, very difficult, but try to keep to a routine. It doesn't necessarily have to be the old routine, but definitely a routine. It's always a sense of comfort when they know what's going to happen next. And watch they play. Watch how they play. Is they play grieving? Is they play hope? Are they speaking to the loved one that passed? Watch they play, because it's going to give you a sense of where they are. And then for everybody, I want to say, when someone passes, accept help. Accept the help that is offered to you. It isn't just you that is grieving. People want to support you. And that sense of helplessness, that spreads. And the moment people feel that they can help, it gives them a sense of control and calm again. So if they're saying, "Can we bring you food?" Say, "Yes, please." If they say, "Can I come sit with you?" Say, "Yes, please." Accept the help. It allows people around you to feel that they have meaning to you as well in this time. Now, I know with grief, people have different responses. Oftentimes they will go very quiet. Sometimes they get very angry. Sometimes they just want to be in a crowd of people to disappear for a while. There is no wrong way to address someone who has lost a loved one. The only thing I can say is do it. Just do it. Find them, give them your support, and don't be afraid to say the loved one's name who has passed. Their name is not going to, it creates a sense of comfort. When you hear a name, often it reminds you of that person and their love. By not saying their name, it's like you're wanting them to disappear out of the conversation. So say their name and tell them that you love them as well, that you're also going to miss them. There is no wrong way to show support in this case. People receiving the support may not always know how to handle it, but I promise you it will be appreciated. And the last thing I want to say is grief doesn't end at the funeral. It continues after the funeral. So please remember, the first 2 to 3 weeks is the hardest. Most people give their support from the day that they find out the loved one has passed away to the day of the funeral. And the day of the funeral, they stop communication like they would on a regular day. That week after the funeral is very lonely. It's very surreal for the person. So please continue 2 to 3 weeks for these people so they can get that sense of community and love.
100.5 FM.